Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome back, everybody. Inshallah, Allah accept your prayers and your dua. And for those who were fasting, may Allah accept from you as well. Continuing our topic with the brother Ismail, the importance of logic in discussion. So, inshallah, brother Ismail, if you can give us in a few minutes just a recap for if anybody joined late, and in few words and easy to digest. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I can do that. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we started just with a short brief on why knowledge is important, and then that we have to have the knowledge and then act upon that, call to it, and then patiently persevere on that path and any harm that we encounter on that path. And the proof of this is Surah Al-Asr, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. By the time mankind is in loss, except for those who truly believe and worship Allah alone and do righteous deeds, performing that which is obligatory upon them and avoiding that which they are forbidden, and enjoin one another with patient perseverance upon obedience to Allah and facing harm and trials. So this encompasses everything: knowledge, acting upon it, calling to it, and bearing patience upon this path of da'wah and da'wah. And then we went into the importance of logic in discussion, that it's fundamental to rational discourse and how we can identify, given the options, what is truth and what is falsehood based on evidence that we have or that we are evaluating. And if we're honest, we can evaluate that evidence and use our logic and reasoning that we're given to do so. And we talked about 3 laws of logic, of classical logic. The law of identity, which is a thing is what it is. I am Ismail. Ismail is Ismail. Allah is Allah. An apple or my cat is my cat, whatever. This is the concept of Tawheed, right? And then we gave some examples of violations of that, which is the obvious one is the Trinity or the Hindu theology, where God is 1 and 3 is 1, or 1 in a million if it's Hinduism. We then looked at the law of non-contradiction. A statement cannot be both true, a true statement and a false statement at the same time. So Jesus, they will claim to be fully God, but also a fully man. These are 2 things that are not the same at the same time. They're contradictory. And then the 3rd law, which is the excluded middle, or law of the excluded middle. So for a claim or an assertion that I make about something, it is either true or the negative of that is true. So either Islam is true or the opposite is true, which is it's false. There's not a 3rd option where it's in between. All right. So good enough is not good enough, right? So when the Christians say, or the Jews, or anyone, well, the Jews don't necessarily say this, but anyone who says, well, there might be errors, but God preserves his word, which whatever that means to them, it can't just be some truth. It can't be 80%. It's 0 or 100%, right? So if you find just one mistake, then it's all out the window. And this is also a mathematical concept that I didn't mention earlier, but if you imply, and this is actually something that I've seen, I'll take a bit of a detour. I've seen this with people online where they'll claim that the Quran is copied from apocryphal texts, right? Other texts. The problem with that is, if you're making that claim, you have to prove that every example is copied the same. If I can show you one example that's copied differently, then this mathematical logic doesn't work anymore, right? You have to prove every example of your claim. Otherwise, your claim isn't true. You can't have a 90% claim. Either it's true or it's false. So a bit of a tangent there, but that's what we went through. And yeah, I think that's a good summary of the laws. When some other things, but I can share my slides. We can give other people a chance to chime in.
Jazakallah khair, brother. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the preparation you've done and for this quick recap. All right, let's open the discussion, inshallah. SubhanAllah, in our discussions, like when we talk with non-Muslims, we don't we need to be aware of falling in the trap of logic, because there are places where we use logic and there are places where we don't use logic. Basically, where we use logic is where we anything related to aqidah, to our belief. Believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in the authenticity of the Quran, believing in the need to the prophets, right? These are the places that where you use logic, and you can, subhanAllah, you can prove it without even saying Qala Allah and Qala Rasulullah, without quoting any verses from the Quran or the Sunnah. But when it comes to Sharia, the do and don't do, why we do this and why we do that, there's no room for using logic. And always, if there is somebody pointing a finger about any of these matters, that why you guys pray 5 times a day, why you don't pray 7 times, why you don't pray 3 times, right? We have no logical explanation for that. But what we have a logical explanation is the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the authenticity of the Quran. And we know that the Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and anything is in the Quran is true for us, and we take it. So this is where you can loop around all the time. You can why women wears a hijab? Why there are some difficult questions. Why man doesn't wear a hijab, right? A logical answer. You might be able to just give some hints, but you cannot conceal your answer. You cannot make it firm. So the logic is in the theology. The logic is in the aqidah, inshallah. So when you establish aqidah in a logical way, there, anything would be easy to accept. Because I know the Quran is the true word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the Quran told the believing woman to wear a hijab, she will wear a hijab because she believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it's firm for her. So that's probably my comment. And anybody else Brother Ismail, you wanna add to this? If
that is super important. 100%. It's just a tool to evaluate and understand, but it is not a source for our directives, our aqidah, or our sharia. I mean, because it gets dangerous. This is just a tool to analyze, and then our laws. Once you analyze what's true, then it's a transitive trust. You don't need to then analyze further. You already the Quran is true, therefore anything in it is true, and that's that. And then you have the scholars. As soon as you start trying to logic out the Sharia, then you get into serious trouble.
Ali, you're the first, so go ahead.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, jazakumullah khair for your time and effort. My question is, not everything logical necessarily is true. Is that right? A logical argument doesn't necessarily, if we follow the rules of structure, doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Sure. Yeah. This is just how you evaluate claims. So I'm trying to think of an example, logically. Well, it depends. If you have an example, it might be easier to go through, but it does not necessitate something being true necessarily. This is just like a calculation, right? We're looking at something, and then do the options fit in the equation? So like the example of the excluded middle, in that case, if Islam is true or false, one of those is true. The law isn't saying that the law isn't giving you the proof. It's just saying that this is how you evaluate it. Either it's true or false. And then you can go into other proofs for it. So if there are proofs for the truthfulness of Islam, right? We have those proofs. So you either take it and you evaluate it as true or false. So you look at it and you could say it's either true or false. There's not a third option where it's like sort of true, sort of false, right? So that's the logic there.
Ali, does that answer your question?
I'm not sure. Like I'm saying, if when you set the premise, like for example, all stars are blue, then you say all blue things are green, then all stars are green.
That actually I have here. Let me pull that up. That is so so you would have three distinct things, right? So let me see. So let me write this down. So if you say notepad, so bring it up. Okay, so say again, all stars are?
Well, I mean, I just defined the premise. Like all stars, for example, are blue.
Mhm.
Now, define blue as something else. It's just like a mathematical problem.
Sure.
A,
Yep.
like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a transit. A equals B, B equals C, C
Yeah.
equals, yeah. Yeah. So if you would still have three distinct. So if you're relating it to like entities, for example, you would still have like three entities because A yeah, I forgot. A does not necessarily equal C in that case. It's just like a transitive property. So that would by normal reasoning not work. There
Yeah, what
are
I'm saying,
certain types. Yeah, yeah.
it's it's considered like a valid argument, but it
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
necessarily mean it's true.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
no, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
like you're following the structure of
Yeah.
the argument, but it doesn't necessarily wait. It makes logic, it makes sense
Yeah.
logically, but it's not
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah, you could say the like you could use that example in like the moon and cheese, right? Like the moon, I forgot the example. It makes it true, but it is not necessarily an accurate thing. This is like one issue with this paradigm. 100% correct.
Right, Jazakallah khair. But just keep in mind it's also rational. It's like,
Sure.
rationality when you discuss like, similar issues in Aqidah and theology. That would be a good aid. All right, anyone else? Question or discussion? Open discussion. Ramzi, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khair. Very well prepared subject, but the subject is kind of it's a dense subject. It's kind of it's a little hard to to go through it, despite the effort. I think it would be nice if maybe in the future, as we do these sessions, we can bring subjects for the debate, like actual topics that are brought up, and then enter these logical
Yes.
arguments
Mhm.
into, kind of integrate
Yeah.
them into the arguments. So for example, if we discuss the Trinity, for example, then we can start to bring in the concepts of the logical arguments and the laws of the laws of logic into that discussion so that we can better understand them and use them and apply them. I think that would be a good way to
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
get focused. I mean, I was sitting here taking notes while you were speaking, but it's a hard topic to tackle just on its own without going a little deep into the examples, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah, for sure. This is so the class I did, they started with this and then exactly that. They went on to and use this as like a kind of a basis to understand those things. This and these things aren't like the brother Ali said, he was completely right. Like there are instances where it rationally speaking or like logically speaking, it's still something still works, but rationally it doesn't, right? Like the moon and the moon being cheese. I forgot the example. It's like the moon is, and I'll have to bring it up later, but you could basically logically say that the moon is cheese, and that'd be a logical argument, but rationally it's not. I didn't want to go too deep into that. That's like and then there's also like paraconsistent logic, all kinds of crazy stuff. But I think 100% we could then take this and use this in future. And the idea is to have this knowledge and you can apply it to examples. I was trying to like shove this into a 35 minutes and then use this for something further. But I get what you're saying, yeah, for sure.
All right, anybody else? I have a comment too. These days, you might hear that some people say that Islam is true because they're Muslims, and those who follow Christianity, for example, or Judaism, they are on the true path, which is totally wrong. Subhanallah. And that even from a logical aspect, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make logic. Also, like, Islamically, there are plenty of ayat in ad-din 'inda Allah al-Islam. And like, the religion in the eyes of Allah, in the sight of Allah, is Islam. And another ayah say, whomever like takes وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَا يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. Whomever takes a different religion except Islam, it wouldn't be accepted from him. And there are many ayat in the Quran that proves it. But unfortunately, some people are trying to take some other verses from the Quran while bending its necks and getting it out of context to say that, oh, if somebody is following Christianity, for example, they should be fine as long as they're Ahlul Kitab, which is illogical and not Islamically true.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, any other questions? Discussions? Open discussion? All right. Sister Amira, go ahead.
Thank you. So let's say if somebody asked me, because I do get this question all the time regarding the hijab, and so it's in the Sharia law, and they say, okay, so what's the difference between wearing the hijab and wearing the veil that Christians wear?
The veil, which veil do they wear?
Well, my family is Christian, so in their church, they're apostolic. So the women, instead of wearing like the whole hijab, it's kind of like a small veil.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they wear a veil, which it doesn't really protect them at all.
Yeah,
So I don't really know how to speak about this subject between what's the difference.
Well, the difference, this is not necessarily related, but the difference is in purpose and in the directive and the reason. Like the effectively at the most basic level, they're doing it for symbolism, and we're doing it because it's a command. But behind the command, there are reasons given. You can ask them ask them why, and just compare the whys. So like the reason behind the hijab and the reason behind whatever tradition they're doing, and that right there will show them the difference.
To add to that, in Islam, for us, hijab is internal as well as external. So it's just because you wear a hijab, that is your identity as a Muslim. But there's further down, it's the internal, everything that you are forbidden from doing. So
that's actually a great point. This just goes on to a bigger issue where a lot of the things that we do, like Islam is a complete religion, right? So everything we do is part of a complete framework. It's not just like you'll find a lot of the things in other religions are very surface level because they've lost the meaning over time and the purpose. So wearing a veil is just because like that's what they do. Right? We do it because that's what we do, or because our forefathers did so. We found them doing it, right? There really is it's very shallow meaning. For us, like the sister said, there's an internal hijab. There's a whole concept behind the hijab that goes beyond just the clothing, right? So you can explain that full paradigm. And also like you ask them like why do you do it? What's your evidence for it and the purpose behind it and the reasoning? And then okay, you give me that, I'm going to give you mine, and you can compare and contrast just like that. And it should be pretty evident from that.
And also to ask them that why do you wear it only in your churches when the word is given in the Bible itself to cover?
That too, yeah. I was actually going to say that, and correct. So you basically just compare and contrast. I don't know why we do this.
Hijab is a form of modesty, and women protect their chastity. Hijab is a protection for the women themselves, and as the brother Ismail said, Sister Fabina said, hijab is meant for every day. And so there's a lot into hijab. We can talk about it, but what's the difference wearing a hijab in a church only, and what we're gaining there, for 5 minutes, for half an hour, and then it's okay.
Yeah, so like the tying it into like logically speaking, right? There we have we have a reason for it. It doesn't necessarily conform to a law per se. But I mean it does in a way, in that like if Islam is true, therefore we do what we are commanded to do, right? Or you don't. I mean, there's free will of intention, but we do it because like it's I call it a transitive trust. Is how I explain it to people. I do what I do because I believe in the truthfulness of the message and everything before it. So if I believe in A, and then I can from A, and if A tells me to do B, now I believe in B, and if B has C, and so on and so forth. It starts in the beginning. I don't just pick and choose. So if the Quran is true, then what the Quran tells you to do is true, and then this does go back to that law of not um, of non-contradiction, where it's all true or it's all false, right? We believe our book is all 100% true, not 85%. And it's kind of an alien paradigm, an alien idea to them. But because we believe it's 100% true, then 100% of the commands and 100% of the instructions are true and therefore should be done logically as well. Like if you believe this is 100% true, then logically it's 100% true. It can't be also then false. Anyway, Sari had his hand up.
All right.
If I can just put a little comment on that. It's one thing, like one of why is there a similarity and what is the difference? Again, we do need to keep in mind that, you know, their religions, their beliefs originated from Allah correctly. So there are remnants of what they believe or what they were told to believe and taught that still remain within their belief today. So that can be carried through. So you would expect to find something somewhere that coincides with Islam or relates generally to Islam. Now, Islam does have a lot more detail. We don't know that they had the detail or they lost it along the way, but we have a lot more detail when it comes to the hijab and the description of the hijab, the purpose, like the brothers mentioned, and sisters. So the idea is all of this deen originated from Allah Azza wa Jal. So what they have with them that matches Islam is remnants of that, or could be remnants of that, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sari, you had your hand up.
Assalamu alaikum, akhi. Jazakallah khairan for your efforts to keep it on the topic of hijab before jumping into something else I wanted to mention. We see out here in the West, there's a lot of women that have a voice just because, for lack of better words, because they're pretty. But when you come to Islam, when the woman is covered up, her voice is only by her logic. People are not listening to her because she's pretty or something like that. So that's another point. In addition to what Brother Samir said about certain people saying Ahl al-Kitab are fine, if you look in Surah Al-Hashr, ayah number 2, it says هو الذي أخرج الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب من ديارهم لأول الحشر إلى آخر الآية. Just because they're Ahl al-Kitab don't mean they're believers, because right here clearly states الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب. So that means they're disbelievers. Something else that I sent in the group chat a couple days ago, and I wanted to put it here. It says, which is it relates to what you said. Two things can't be this, like Allah is Allah, Allah is not Jesus, and that. But then when you look in their text, John verse 30 says, I and the Father are one. So how would you go about refuting that?
You would ask them like one in what, right?
So Jesus said, I and the Father are one.
I know. Was it John 30?
Yeah.
I remember got my notes.
To interject, there's a portion in the Bible, I don't know the reference, but it also says whereas Jesus' words allegedly saying to his followers, "We are one, just as I and the Father are one." So it would make everybody, and you can use that argument to tell them. So is the way that they are the one, just as that, all of the followers are one as well. So are they all now part of the Trinity?
Yeah, that's what I meant by ask, like one in what way, right? Like, so you have to look at whatever John 30 says, and like you said, is it one in purpose? It is one in belief? Is one in what? And for that reason, like yeah, exactly that. John 30. Too many Bible notes. Is it just John 30?
Also, there's another one. I don't know how that would go into our topic. And it says, and that one I've seen it a lot, like on YouTube and stuff like that, where Christians would use it. And Jesus had said, and also it's John, but this one is 58. It says, before Abraham was born, I am. And that one is just like, it didn't make sense to me. I was like, so in that, then Adam would be God instead? Like, it makes no sense. But I just would like to see how we break that, because those are like trending now. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna see them on the street when we go to give dawah.
Yeah, let me find. Yeah.
Well,
I'm gonna paste it in. I'm gonna paste it in the chat here for you.
But while you look, you don't have to disapprove every verse they have in their Bible, right? We know their Bible has been corrupted.
Sure.
So you don't have to stick what they have in their Bible and to refute whatever they have, wherever they bring you. That's man, you got it.
Oh yeah. There is a fine line between going through every verse they have. Like, I might do one or two. So what I like to do is it depends how it goes. Like, one or two back and forth, it's a conversation, but always be steering it towards the Quran, right? That's my style anyway. So at least I try to. Sometimes I like to kind of get into these, answer their questions, because they just don't know their own books, but it's not my job to teach them. But like some of the more popular ones, like this I am one, is like one I like to quickly address with them. Like, it doesn't mean what you think it does. And just to show them that just because they've been told it means that doesn't actually mean that. So use it as an example of like, take your Christian goggles off. If you're a random person who read this, how would you read it? And would you be convinced it meant anything, right? And could it mean something else, right? And you use that as an example, as a jumping point to go into, to give them an example to look at everything else they have later. Say, look, the way we went through this one verse of yours, apply that to all of your other ones, and see, are you just looking at it from what you want it to look like, or could it mean something else? And you give them that shubha, right? They give them that doubt. And once they have that, great. And then bring it back to, well, here are clear and explicit statements we have. There's no guessing involved. And like your Bible says, God is not the author of confusion. Where's the confusion here? There's confusion here and there's no confusion here. Try to bring it back.
I could add on to that as well. A lot of the times the argument they'll use with that is they say that I am is a name for God, right? And if you apply the name to that, like, phrase, like, before Abraham was, I am, if you replace I am with God, before Abraham was God, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's just saying God existed before Abraham if they use that explanation, and even if they don't use that way, if they say, oh, but, this was before God, this Shaitan was before Abraham,
Yeah, I have. I'll give you a good post, a good copy pasta on this from his brothers here. There's a lot of good ways to approach this one, because this is a popular one, so I like to address this one. Some of the more like obscure ones I won't bother with, because it's like whatever. But and I'll tell them, like, we'll talk about this one, and then we'll go talk about the Quran. We're gonna go over here now. I keep trying to push them to it, and a lot of times I would ask them, like, what is your metric for identifying if something is truth or not? Like, how do you look at something and say this is true or this is not true? Like, what is your like what is evidence to you? How can you identify something? And then you take that what they say and you apply it. And if they change that, you can go back and say, well, that's not what you. This is you're changing your goalpost now. You're moving your goalpost. You said this is how you evaluate it. And you can also, help them with it. Like, do you evaluate it this way? And like, of course, we do this and that. And you kind of build them you put them in a position where it makes sense to them, and then you show them what the thing is that makes sense. You have to help these people, fortunately, a lot of times, just like show them like what logic is and what reason is, and how to be like a reasonable human having a discussion, not just like all over the place.
All right, Jazakallah khair. We're almost close to the end of our discussion, inshallah. We're still open for questions or comments. You said the verse from the Bible, but I felt it went so quickly, which I want to make sure everybody knows this verse. It says in 1 Corinthians 14:33, it says, like, God is not the author of confusion. And when you talk logically, and you show them how this doesn't make sense, this is not rational, this is no way, this is what God is, especially Trinity, for example, that nobody can really answer it and nobody can explain it properly. So maybe you can use this, which not 100% to quote the Bible, but sometimes it helps.
Yeah, you have to go into their paradigm, break it down a little bit, and then bring them out and show them the better way. And compare and contrast. I posted in a reply to the I am one in the chat here, by the way, if someone wants to look.
I see. Good notes. All right. Any other questions, comments? Inshallah, we'll end. Do you have a final comment? Anything, Brother Ismail?
No, just I think we've covered some pretty dense stuff, as Brother Ramzi was saying. Hopefully we can use this in further like discussions and like tie it into other things and workshop it and situational items. I think it's helpful to know. I found it helpful when I learned it, just in generally speaking. But anything I said that's true and accurate is from Allah, and anything that isn't is from myself. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله إنه الغفور الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Well, brothers and sisters, it's definitely, we're not going to learn everything we look for in one session. So aid yourself with patience, inshallah, and inshallah we'll have much more of these discussions to come and learn from them. So I'm pretty sure we have a lot of good topics to talk about, inshallah. I really appreciate the effort, Brother Ismail, and we look forward to dive deeper and give more examples. So we start mastering the logical terms that you just provided. Jazakallah khair, brother. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this gathering as a gathering of knowledge, seeking the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to be among those that's surrounded by the angels making istighfar for us for attending this circles of knowledge, halaq al-ilm. Dr. Muhammad, would you like to close us up?
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Ismail. MashaAllah, very good presentation. Barakallah fi. Just make dua for everybody. اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
جزاكم الله خير. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. See you in 2 weeks, inshallah.